Fine. What's another 17 months? I can always start again. Make a new channel. Superpowered soldiers of a regime that conquers stars, grasps the hands of gods, and outlive the civilizations around them with intense and powerful technology, back-ended by a series of soldiers who can single-handedly take on entire planets. Now, this description can be levied against pretty much every faction in the grimdark future of Warhammer 40k, but it's also very fitting for the Viltrum Empire. Welcome all you beautiful ladies and animals as we delve into the Viltrumites of and how they would handle existence in the far future. Now, this is a bit of a repeat. Way back in my first Throwing Random Characters at Warhammer 40k video, the Viltrumites were thrown at the Imperium. But only the Imperium, and to be fair, a lot of the points I made in that video were either a little underinformed or badly explained, which led to a lot of confusion about them in the comments. But today, we now have a rerun. Instead of just pitting the warriors of Viltrum against the Imperium, we're going to be putting them at odds against the rest of the Warhammer universe, from Chaos to Tyranids to Orks and all the rest. Kinda like asking if they could exist in the 40k verse and hold their own against these insane factions. As always, if you like these videos and want more, be sure to like and subscribe so you're here for the next one. But without further ado, let's dive back into the Viltrumites. Now, seeing as we've gone over Viltrumites in their immense strengths before, there's going to be some repeats if you've seen that past video, but I'm going to go quickly through their capabilities so we can get into what you actually came here for. And of course, this kind of goes without saying, but spoilers ahead for the very end of the comics. Nothing specifically about the story is going to come up, but some situations and some actions taken by characters are going to be used. So be warned if you're excited to see the end of the show whenever it's finished in 2094. So, Viltrumites are powerful, immensely. The main plot of Season 3 in the show is the government basically coming to terms with the fact that himself is pretty much unstoppable compared to what they have, and he's one of the weaker Viltrumites, at least for the time being. But we've got a lot of feats for Viltrumites in the show, from Nolan's escapades on an alien world in the first season, where we see him single-handedly drop mountains on cities Ultron style,
Earth isn't yours to conquer,
to flying so fast that he heats up the air and on collision with buildings effectively sets off a chain reaction of nuclear explosions in the middle of a city. And on that topic, a concept that wasn't explained in my last video that featured Viltrum, because in all honesty, I didn't even comprehend it at the time, was the maximum speed of Viltrumites, which can range anywhere from just below the Red Rush, to cruising through multiple galaxies within months, or faster than light. And the truth seems to be less so that they're ever limited, but more so that the speed of a Viltrumite, like everything they do, is exponential in degree. If someone like Nolan wants to move 10 feet, he could do it fast, yeah, but not at his maximum potential speed. Now, crossing galaxies, he's got a runway of sorts, a lot of open space to build up speed and exponentially go from a few thousand miles per hour to millions, if not more. So the grander the scale, the faster the speed. But the shorter scales, while still fast, they won't get so fast that the air around them lights on fire, unless they just orbit around the Earth like we see Mark do in Season 3. Now for strength, well, like I said, we see Nolan punch through buildings. A young Invincible's face is used like a set of brakes on the subway, lifting mountains and punching holes in entire moons, splitting them in half, probably the most intense force we've seen in the comics. Comparing this to 40k, the most we really see from individuals was Angron splitting a planet. But that was also with a super helping of Khorne's hate boner rage juice doing most of the heavy lifting for him. But that's not even the strongest we see. In Season 2 of the show, we watch Nolan drift just at the edge of the event horizon on a black hole, without being sucked in, contemplating suicide. Now, It's a lot to escape a black hole. There's entire movies about this shit. But Nolan didn't even try. He was almost welcoming it. Now, he didn't get close enough to go beyond the point of no return. It's clear enough that even black holes aren't of a big deal for Viltrumites. And at the end of the comic series, we see Mark and Thrag fight on the surface of the sun for a few minutes, and they're still pretty much okay. And that's another important thing to note. If a Viltrumite gets away, they're going to heal. And they're going to come back stronger and with the knowledge of how you beat them, and then that's how they beat you. If you don't finish them off when you have a chance, you're never getting a second chance. The last thing is numbers. Now, as revealed in the comics in the most recent season of the show, there's a lowly 50 Viltrumites left. While some interbreeding with inferior species is worthy of execution, like Nolan's bug baby, we know species similar to Viltrumites like humanity is an acceptable replacement. As an infiltrating force with an abundant number of endless, uncountable hive worlds in the Imperium, there's planets literally made just to repopulate the Imperium's front lines. We could see an uprising of hundreds, if not millions, of Viltrumites in the matter of a few decades. Because unlike a lot of characters we've thrown at 40k like the legendary Darth Vader or Batman who only live one human lifespan, if not a little longer, Viltrumites live for thousands and thousands of years, outpacing some of the most legendary Astartes like Titus and even up to the 10,000 long lives of the Primarchs. So while it was an issue in the show, with a singular Earth to pick suitors from, the Warhammer universe is just teeming with human lives, very expendable ones at that. Oh yes, tyranids, because nothing says fair fight like throwing an entire intergalactic swarm of ever-adapting, all-consuming bio-horrors against a race of superpowered warlords who think that diplomacy is just punching slightly less hard. The Tyranids, however, are not just a threat, they're the threat, a never-ending tide of flesh and claws, stripping entire galaxies bare like a cosmic horde of locusts with better teamwork. A species so grand and vast that they whipped the king of the Necrons back into shape after seeing their fleets. Unlike your standard alien invasion, there's no negotiating with the Tyranids, no intimidating them, no "this isn't your world" speech that makes them hesitate. They don't get scared and they don't get tired. They don't stop unless they just run out of food. Now, the fights between Viltrumites and Tyranids are going to depend on how domineering the Viltrumite DNA is in comparison to the genetic manipulation of the Tyranids. Because the Viltrum DNA is so strong and pure that even a child like Oliver, Omni-Man's second son born to the mantis-like species of Thraxans, appears to be entirely Viltrumite apart from his aging and purple skin. So if Tyranites tried to bleed a Viltrumite and take their blood, likely they'd be overwritten and forming humanoid babies in their leviathans. But that's if the Tyranids did nothing and let life go on as normal. Tyranids aren't normal. Each being on a fleet is an amalgamation of hundreds, if not thousands, of microorganisms subsumed to create the perfect organisms. Likely, they would be the first to turn the Viltrum DNA on its head, taking the good parts for themselves and removing the humanoid loyalty to the Empire from it. So instead of an army of unwitting Olivers, you get an army of Tyranid warriors who don't need claws, or biological guns, or wings, but ones that can fly, are incredibly durable, and are birthed by the millions upon every world they land on. Where the Viltrumites are coming short with just 50 members, the Tyranids create millions each day. Basically, with the pure numbers advantage, Tyranids with Viltrumite blood would conquer the Warhammer universe in about a year. Now this is where things get messy. A full-scale war between the Viltrum Empire and some of Warhammer 40k's most colorful factions is less of a who would win, and more of a who gets bodied last. The Orks. Oh yes, the ultimate stress test for any would-be galactic conqueror. The Viltrumites think they love war, Buddy, they have nothing on the Orks. The more you fight them, the stronger they get. The stronger they get, the more they fight you. But you can nip the problem in the bud before it gets too bad. This has been the Imperial strategy since the War of the Beast. And with soldiers who crash through moons and veterans that can wipe away entire civilizations, as long as no singular Waaagh is able to grow to the level that it can challenge a single Viltrumite, the Empire should have little struggle trimming the edges in the same way the Imperium does. Now, if they let it grow out of order, you've got a situation on par with the Ragnar, but now intergalactic and throwing the same moons that the Mites would have to punch their way around. Now here's a fun one. Unlike some Viltrumites, the Tau don't just rely on brute strength. They have tactics, advanced tech, and something Viltrumites hate dealing with: range. Super strength doesn't mean much when you're getting pelted by railguns from across the battlefield. But can the Tau actually adapt fast enough to hold out? Probably not. The Tau rely on fast-moving ambushes to overwhelm and outspeed an opponent before they have a chance to react. Not only do veterans like Nolan move incredibly fast and attack in much the same way, but when put on the back foot, there's no proper way to defend yourself from a Texas-sized rock landing on a Supremacy warsuit. Their best bet is to run away and reorganize, as they often do. But it's hard to do that when single Mites can fly faster than any of their battleships and would be capable of ripping through their hulls all the same. These knife-eared space elves have spent millennia surviving worse threats than Viltrumites. Between their speed, precognition, and ridiculous psychic powers, the Eldar have a way of making even the strongest warriors look like complete amateurs. But could they actually kill enough Viltrumites before being overwhelmed? This is all going to be about strategic moves on their part. Whether the Eldar make good of their future farsight to catch any Viltrumite warriors off guard and prepare way in advance, or if Viltrum can hit their small number of craft worlds too fast for even the elves to react, this is kind of tilted towards the Viltrumites. As far as we know, a tactical deployment of Viltrumites would splatter a craft world into bits, even with the foresight of knowing it's coming on the Eldar's part. You can see a freight train coming from a week away. It doesn't change the fact that you can't stop it from turning you into elven jelly. The closest thing 40k has to space dwarves, except these ones are terrifyingly efficient and run by massive ancient AI supercomputers. They don't rush in screaming like orcs, they don't rely on faith like the Imperium, and they don't get overwhelmed by emotions like the Eldar. They just analyze, strategize, and eradicate. But is that enough when you're dealing with a foe that can punch through your starships? No. Considering that the Votann are just sort of a smaller, literally shorter version of the Imperium, but they're also much more isolated. Actually, considering that Viltrum prefers to conquer than straight out destroy, it's possible that their shared DNA with humans, that the Votann, unlike any of the other inferior aliens in 40k, might be subjugated and allowed into their empire, rather than just being wiped off the map anytime the two interact. In fact, this is likely the best case scenario for any of the alien species in 40k. Aside from the Orks, or tyranids who refuse to work with them, the Viltrum Empire might actually make the Tau, Eldar, and the Votann even stronger by forcing them into a coalition under their iron fist. Alright, let's be real. This is where Viltrumites start to realize they might have messed up. Fighting tyranids would be bad enough. Dealing with orcs is a little exhausting. But the Necrons, this is a completely different nightmare. You see, Necrons aren't just an empire. They're a corpse-dormant god-tier doom machine that's been waiting for the perfect moment to reawaken and remind the galaxy that they were here first. They're what the Mass Effect Reapers thought they were. Imagine an entire civilization of unkillable, self-repairing deathbots with faster-than-light weaponry that ignores durability. The kind of ancient spite that makes the Viltrumite arrogance look downright modest. Viltrumites thrive on physical dominance. They break people's will by proving they're unstoppable. But what happens when they punch a Necron and it just gets back up? again and again and again. Even worse, the Necrons are led by literal gods, with the kind of reality-breaking technology that makes the Viltrumites empire building look like a high school wrestling team trying to take on the NFL. The moment the Necrons decide the Viltrumites are a problem, it's not really a war, it's more of a mass execution. So the real question, like a lot of matchups with Necrons, isn't can the Viltrumites win? It's a kind of question of how many tomb worlds can they destroy or limit the scope of before the Necrons wake up and unify their forces across the galaxy. Because for all their strength, the Necron Empire at its peak is also like Viltrum at its peak, a series of unstoppable conquerors hell-bent on making the galaxy in their image. And unlike a lot of other strangely powered soldiers of 40k, the Necrons can actually see, understand, and react to the Viltrumite attacks at the speed of light. Although at the same time, the arrival of the tyranids nor the explosion of half the galaxy hasn't been enough to awaken all the Necrons just yet. So if they move fast enough, the Viltrumites wouldn't be up against the entire unified empire. Their biggest problem would really be time distortion. Hard to fight back when you get locked into a Pokeball. So far, all the other matchups have a certain logic to them. Even the Tyranids, as terrifying as they are, have predictable biological rules. They still gotta eat. But Chaos doesn't care about rules. Chaos doesn't fight fair. Chaos doesn't fight at all. It corrupts, twists, and laughs in the face of everything you thought that you understood. And with the way that the Viltrum Empire is bloodlusted and with no protection from magical abilities whatsoever, something that just doesn't come up during... The Viltrumites are most susceptible to chaos above the rest. They can rip cultists and space marines in half by the truckload, sure. But Nurgle has remedies 100 times worse than the Scourge virus. Khorne will use their own combat prowess in Spartan-esque honor code to turn them into demon conquerors of the Black Crusade. Slaanesh will take their strives for perfection and Darwinism into the extremes and make them into mass subjugators. And while a Viltrumite, especially a strong one like Nolan, could probably fight and beat a demon prince like Ingron time and time again, Khorne's sight will fall upon them both, bathing the fighters in the endless red lust of combat until one or both of them fall deeper into the dark embrace of the laughing gods. But no one in 40k can defeat Chaos in the Viltrum Empire is no exception. Even without striving for total elimination, just fighting chaotic forces in skirmishes all across the galaxy will lead Viltrum to its highest rate of casualties since the Scourge virus nearly wiped out their species. Depending on the Chaos Gods and depending on if their will of superiority wins out over chaotic corruption, facing the warp and all its horrors will either be the thing that undoes the Viltrum Empire, or makes it unkillable and unstoppable enough to properly take on the 40k galaxy. And if they're repopulating with the many millions of hive worlds, that's likely gonna be the trajectory they go down anyways. But instead of one random factory worker learning he can shoot lightning and being spleed blitzed by a Grey Knight, it's some poor alternate reality version of Mark Grayson accidentally punching that Grey Knight in half before growing massive spikes and turning into a bloodlusted demon, just aching for his next feast. So there you have it. The Viltrum Empire across nearly all of 40k, rather than just the Imperium of Man. And yeah, it's either going to be really good for Chaos, or really good for Tyranids. Or both. Let me know what you thought down below, and subscribe if you liked this and want even more. We're throwing all the fake Superman and Batman next week. As always, big thank you to all the members and patrons who help me continue to make new videos. If you're unaware, you can become a member for just $1 a month and get early access to member-exclusive polls to vote for which videos come first, get videos early, and get more behind the scenes. And go to the links below to grab some of my charity merch. 100% of the proceeds I make from this stuff gets donated directly to my local food bank. Also, I recently crossed over 2 million views across the whole of my channel, and wow, thank you guys. But as always, stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.